double-digit games.
So we got to remember some more Dream. Man, who's their backup big?
Actually, relevant to today's episode, the backup include Blake Dietrich and Glory.
Oh wait, Glory Johnson was on that team.
Yeah,
Glory Johnson was on that team. Who?
Kalani Brown and Jalen Agnew. The only other players who played double-digit games for the
Jalen Agnew. I should have known. I started a feature on that.
Dream.
Does anybody?
One of the funniest times in American basketball history.
What were they rewarded for that?
The 5th pick or something. They were bad. They were very bad.
Yeah. Does anybody else just sit around thinking about?
I usually don't think.
Yeah, true.
Thinking about the 2020 Atlanta Dream
on
a Friday night.
For hours.
Hunter, is this your way of saying that? Is this your way of saying that I don't have a date tonight? Because that's rude. It's true, but it's rude.
Anyways, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 7 of WNBA Retrospect, our annual summer scouting series. Yes, seasons.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know we were that
breaking down
I'm down.
The pre-draft film of WNBA legends. Today we'll talk about Tiff Hayes, who was the number 14 overall pick in the 2012 draft out of UConn.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are Locked On Women's Basketball. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. My name's Cruse. I'm your Saturday host covering the WNBA Draft and Prospect Scouting. I'm joined by my co-hosts M. Adler and Lincoln Shafer. M covers the W with a focus on player development in the game within the game. Lincoln also contributes to our WNBA Draft coverage here at The Next. Last week was a pretty simple episode. This week seems to be more of a goofy episode here. But with Tiff Hayes, 5'10" guard out of UConn. Like I said, inter-college career across 4 seasons, 11.7 points, 3.1 rebounds, 4.4 rebounds, 3.1 assists on 53% from 2, 36% from 3, and 77% from the free throw line. To start, M, what was your overall takeaways from your evaluation on Tiff Hayes as a prospect?
She is both the shortest 5'10" player I've ever seen and the tallest 5'9" player I've ever seen. That's the best way I can put what she is, both in terms of play style and in terms of literally just looking at the court. Something is wrong. I mean, a lot of things are wrong with UConn, but like specifically in 2011, 2012, she's basically playing the 4 defensively. And I gotta say, I didn't like it. It was weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
That team generally just had very like through the looking glass vibes.
Very, very odd. It's this 1 year after Maya and before Stewie that just it's a bit of a slog.
It's basically like when else in UConn history, like since like Renee and Tina got there, was it ever like, hey, we need like a future late first round pick to score 27 points or we lose?
Yeah. Yeah, and
Weird
didn't
times.
they play Notre Dame 4 times? And
They played Notre Dame
something
4
stupid.
times.
Yeah, it's absurd. Like shout out to Tiff Hayes and Steph Dolson for making that team 31-5 and making the Final Four.
And like kind
Honestly,
of Kia Stokes. Kia Stokes
very
defended her ass
impressive.
off.
Yeah, she never stopped doing that either. But Tiff,
fair.
like,
Well, she did in New York.
She understands floor spacing, and just it has the juice. Undeniably has the juice getting to the rim.
She is one of the juiciest players in league history.
Don't say that.
No, oh god. I'm so canceled for this.
There's
This is why we like to record on Sunday mornings instead of Friday nights.
So much of Tiffany Hayes' college tape is about it's about juxtaposition, okay?
In this essay, I will.
She has immaculate body control, but she also falls down all the time.
All the time.
That never stops.
The Alicia
It never
Gray
really
special.
stops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she has I think the best, not only the best first step, maybe not the best first step, but like one of the best first steps, but like she obviously has the best last step of anyone we have ever watched as a prospect. It's not even close. Like you said, her body control through contact, especially her core stability in midair, the way that she decelerates, it's all like the best basically I've ever seen. There's really no like players when they're this good, we talked about this especially last year, when they're this good at like specific things, it's really boring to talk about them because there's nothing to say but wow, they're great. But she's so good at that like last step, that finishing, that body control, and
then she gets thrown around everywhere else.
what I was saying was defensively, she can't move her hips in tight spaces at all, so she just doesn't defend any layup, anything. She doesn't contest anything at the rim because her hips like just don't move on defense.
She also
She's like
doesn't get down in a stance a lot of times.
She's guarding up a lot, so it just gets weird because they just don't have any forwards. so she's just kind of like, yeah, I'll go guard this 6'2" back to the basket big. I don't really know what I'm doing over here, but I'm gonna do it. And she's gonna work.
It was so funny when they
hustle
played
and
Baylor, because even when they played BG, Gino isn't, and they lose that game, obviously. But even when they play Baylor, Gino doesn't start. He doesn't start both Steph and Kia Stokes, which, by the way, this is the first time I think in recorded history the three of us have been mad that a team did not start two centers.
I mean, the other options were Caroline Doty coming off of 2 ACL injuries, Kelly Ferris, and making 5'8.5" Tip Hayes guard 6'2" bigs.
And they went with the latter.
Yeah.
So yeah, against Baylor, she's the primary backline helper. On BG post-ups, she's getting flattened on every single lob pass. It's so funny.
Yeah. In like more juxtaposition, she's occasionally making perfect decisions. She's such an impressive interior passer.
Mm-hmm.
Like the wraparound passes she's throwing are absurd, but also she will just catch the ball at the 3-point line and stand there for 6 seconds waiting for somebody to set a screen.
Yeah, and she mostly like doesn't do much passing in general. It's either like, and for the most part, she either takes a good shot or just like passes the ball along. But like, which isn't that in and of itself. But like, she flashes some of the best kick-out passing we've ever seen. But she just flashes. She keeps flashing. She just never gets better or consistent.
Distinctly not a primary ball handler.
No, not even close.
Such an odd player.
I want to, at some point, I want to just like figure out what each of you have as her offensive like role or archetype. Because we normally don't talk about this on this show because it's not as important as when we put it on the board. But it's still interesting because she's sort of in between a lot of things.
I would say slasher for me.
Yeah, she's a slasher.
I said shot creator.
A lot of spot up skills.
I say shot creator because she can create an ISO.
Sure.
And she has some good passes.
Is she creating shots or is she creating layups?
Yeah, see,
layups or shots.
To me,
a shot creator is not a jump shooter necessarily.
But that's a part of it, though. I feel like.
I feel like she doesn't really have much in between game. I want her to have a bit more in between game before I got to calling her a shot creator. It's all spot ups and layups.
Yeah, like for me, the weird part, my weird comparison for her jumper in the mid range. It reminds me of like a lag in 2K.
I mean, she's shooting off of a rib cage. She's getting the ball from like the top of her sternum and just flicking it.
Like when she goes for layups,
work as well.
It doesn't.
Her hang time is so long that like legitimately like the longest hang time on a jumper I've seen, like in the mid range. I don't understand how she's just like in the air forever and just holding the ball.
Yeah. The best way I can like describe her 3-point form is it's just like it's effortful. like her coordination and her surprisingly efficient power transfer and the timing, it's all fine, but it just looks like it really takes a lot of work.
I mean, she has to have perfect hands and great timing, because if her timing is even a 10th of a second off on that, it's missing the entire rim.
It's like a super narrow base.
Yeah. Very strange player.
It's like if Bryce Harper was merely like a very good hitter and not like perennial MVP level hitter, it would be like his form. It's like that. I don't know why I set it up with that like exact kind of phrasing, but if you watch baseball, you know what I'm talking about.
Who's Bryce Harper?
He's a football player for the Miami Jets.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
First, some numbers on just her pull-up shooting in the mid-range, limited volume, but 27% as a senior from three, one pull-ups, 17%. So if you consider, we'll talk about it later, but like what she did in the W is almost like outlier development to me. Like she wasn't some like insane mid-range scorer in terms of volume, but like I think she was a lot better than she was in college.
Also,
it's interesting.
Pick and roll numbers.
Yeah, sort of.
Pick and roll numbers in college were not very good either.
They were poo-poo. Which, like, you know, partly because of like she wasn't exactly playing with pick and roll bigs.
Right.
Yeah, Steph is just gonna flash to the high post and
she's a pick and pop big.
Elbow.
Yeah, she's a pick and pop big. She's a great pick and pop big.
Now she's just up 50% pick and pop big.
Literally the greatest shooter since they moved the line back of all time.
She's just like a insane developmental arc from a shooting standpoint. Like I think Stephanie.
That's what happens when you play for Money Mike. Sometimes after like your second season in the league, he's like, "Hey, you need to spend the winter learning how to shoot threes, or you're never gonna get paid." And then she turns into a great shooter.
It's just like the Brooke Lopez thing, but like, yeah, it's interesting. And the other thing that was interesting for me with just like you guys talked about, the ability to create in transition, I think was like the shot creation you're talking about. I think like the transition stuff, the passing in transition, there was some like really nice like one-handed passes in transition. It's a weird skill set where she has.
You know what she reminds me of? Sorry, this literally just came to mind. What if Diamond Miller was short and good?
Hey,
the form's off, but we get the passing flashes and the finishing. It's interesting.
It's
actually that comp sucks. What am I talking about? Diamond Miller can't finish for shit.
Yeah. It's a weird combination of like primary skills and like very good secondary skills, but like the most valuable primary skills she like doesn't have, like in terms of like shot creation.
I disagree. I think the most important skill is take good shots and make them, and she does that.
The transition stuff is tied very strongly to the form of defense that UConn was playing, which is this
disgusting,
wildly disgusting, aggressive diamond zone press that they're running literally 40 minutes a night. It's wild.
It's so gross.
They're
works.
Creating so many turnovers. This is what Gino thought was the best way for them to win games, and they won a lot of games, but it is rough.
Yeah, generally, if you try to make a career out of like second guessing Gino's coaching choices, you end up getting fired very quickly.
After the break, let's talk about our scouting grades for Tip, and then later on we'll give our evaluation on her WNBA career as well.
Diamond Miller, what am I talking about?
Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what you need to keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. If you didn't know already, Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV's channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. With your scouting grades on Hayes as a prospect, where does it start for you, Lincoln?
I end up falling like in between a 55 and a 60, which is going to just kind of depend on the shooting for me. It's probably like a 55 because I'm not necessarily bullish on the in-between game developing or hitting an above average, like above 34-35% number of spot up threes. So it's just going to be get to the rack, play some defense, and hit a respectable amount of your spot up threes, which is a good starter on a very good team.
You're on mute, M.
No, I'm not. Okay, that
You're
is
having an episode.
Riveting. Riveting podcasting.
That is interesting to me. As I was trying to say as I was like, I went, ooh, interesting. Wow, really? I said that a bunch of times when you were going over your grade. But no one heard me except me and my cat Sage over there. It's really interesting that you don't necessarily believe in the 3-point shot because again, I find the power transfer and I find the efficiency, I find the timing to all be like very solid, even if the form is one of the grossest things I've ever seen. So like she makes enough of them, and specifically she's around 38-39% of her, if not a little bit higher, of her open catch and shoot threes every year in college. So like I have no question about translating that to the next level.
It's gross, but it's functional.
That's what I just said.
It's just yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you have questions about it. You're not sure.
More average than good.
Well, you were not sure if it was average at all. That's what you said. We can roll the tape back. This is a podcast.
What's your grade?
Oh yeah, I have her as a 5 because I think the defense is absolutely horrendous. I have no hope for the defense. I don't think it's projectable in the slightest.
Interesting.
I have
it's
a 30.
Hard to get a.
I'm trolling.
Bro.
Wait, what'd you say? I didn't hear.
I said I had a 30. I was messing with Lincoln. I have a 50. I have a 50.
Let's go. I'm correct.
For me, I think I'm like totally not sold on the shooting. Just like I think it's an aesthetics thing.
Wait, hold on.
Also,
are you not totally sold, or are you totally not sold?
I don't know. I'm not sold on the shooting. I don't think.
Okay.
I think it's enough like a league average level.
All right.
But whenever I was going through some film on her and watching like a lot of different shot attempts, I feel like whenever she was facing a contest, like with her mechanics, I feel like she had to speed things up a little bit quicker, and it wasn't as good.
Yeah,
she's passing up a lot of
the numbers bear that out.
Semi-open, semi-contested, and just kind of dumping the ball off next to her.
And for me, one thing I've realized is that being able to make open threes is valuable, but like if the people that can really make contested threes in college, I feel like a lot stronger about that projection. I think like it was,
Good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah,
there's players that don't. If you make open threes, there's like a chance it doesn't like translate because it's just a hot streak or whatever. But I mean, you make contested threes.
That's a very good point. I guess guard defense was also less important back then, so my grade is probably like, if you adjust for 2012, my grade's probably a 55. So I'd say a soft 55.
The whole idea for the defense for me is that she shows that she is willing to work. She's willing to guard multiple positions.
Poorly.
But I mean, if you can guard poorly across multiple positions, there's going to be a 2, 3, or 4 that can't shoot on the other team in about half of the teams in 2012.
I mean, I get that, but my thing is specifically with her off-ball defense is so bad that she is giving up so many. Like in the reps when they're in man, her off-ball defense, her instincts for help and rotations are like genuinely harmful to the team. Consistently,
you're just betting on athleticism.
Yeah,
which isn't a hard bet, given her tape.
Strong
like
athleticism.
At the same time,
elite statistical profile.
The greatest finisher, I think we can all agree this is the greatest finisher we've ever seen at the college level.
Like 53% in the half court, playing with multiple non-shooters.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. And I think I sent you the stats before, but I think over 80% of her rim attempt or of her shots at the rim were unassisted for her career.
Just gets to the rim dribbling.
She will beat you in a straight line and then go around you.
Before we get to segment 3, M, I'm going to ask you this. Any comps?
Do I... Other than what if Diamond Miller was an entirely different player?
No,
but
I'm giving you a chance to redeem yourself.
4
I'm giving you a
inches
chance.
shorter.
4 inches shorter.
Completely different
good
player.
Finish. What if you traded? What if you took J.C. Sheldon and turned all of her defensive skill points into ISO shot creation?
What if this is a lefty aesthetic one? I'm sorry ahead of time.
I always knew you were a lefty.
What if James Harden had no pick and roll chops?
James Harden was a better defender.
And also couldn't self-create on jumpers.
She could self-create.
She can self-create.
At the rim?
Yeah.
That's all that matters. She had like a 66% true shooting in like 2 of her college careers. Jumpers are overrated. Bro, when
I do have an offensive comp.
When I just want to say, if you're putting up a 60% true shooting next to Kia freaking Stokes, you're all right. Okay, what's the offensive comp?
Lucia Conaway.
Ooh.
You're putting a lot of control. You're putting a lot of stock into her getting better as a finisher.
Similarly, out of control.
It's like the idea of like just the slashing, but I mean, I wonder what Tip was as a finisher. We don't have synergy numbers from like her freshman year, but yeah, I mean
we do. It's just for like 2 games.
Yeah,
we had pivot analysis, but they dropped out like literally 3 days ago. But it was pretty ridiculous. Anyway, rest in peace, pivot analysis. I miss you.
I think like Tip Hayes' ability as like the slashing, and then you talk about it like we talk about the spot up shooting. That combination with like little in the mid range creation, such a hard comp to find. Like I don't know how long it's gonna be until we like use Tip Hayes as like a comp in like a scouting, in like one of our scoutings.
I mean, hell, it's really hard for when we were doing JC. It was super hard to find comps for her because W players just don't get to the rim at this rate that often.
And if they do, they're usually like primaries. That's like the weird. It's like the weird intersection that like it gives her like a solid enough floor, but at the same time, like there's a way this could. We'll talk about it in a couple minutes on segment 3, but like there's a way you can see how this doesn't work out and why she went in the second round.
I mean, well. Sort of.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. If they've given therapy a try, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. To kick off segment 3, we have to just talk about this 2012 draft process. The 2012 class, we know Nneka Ogwumike at 1 was the right pick, but Tip Hayes went 14th overall in this draft. The player that went 13 did some research. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. I don't want to. But she played in the Czech League, and in her draft eligible season, overseas in the EuroLeague, she averaged 8 points, shot like under 30%, around 30% from 2, shot like 17% from 3, but she averaged like 15 points and like shot 50% from 2 in the Czech League, and that propelled her to a number 13 draft pick. And I mean, she played 3 years in the league, 52 games, 38% from the field, and yeah, I mean, if you're Tulsa traded the draft pick of this for a 5'4" guard, 5'4" guard because she's from Oklahoma. And
shout out to the Penny Toller GM days.
Oh Jesus! Which lasted like 2 decades. 2 decades too long.
Tip is an interesting story. A lot of people blamed her entirely and solely for UConn's Final Four loss.
I think we've referenced.
What did they lose to in that game?
Notre Dame.
Well, at least someone burned it down a decade later.
I think we've referenced how she was. I think we've referenced how she was drafted so low because of this one game in like 5 of these episodes.
But also I want to say that's the proximate reason, and Lincoln will get into this more. But it's also worth noting, like, for what her performance was throughout her UConn career, and for what her performance was in a lot of games that year, there were and big games earlier in her career. I mean, again, the freshman sophomore years, they win the NCAA title. Do I have that correctly? Yes. Specifically, she has this issue her senior year. Despite overall excellent production, she just doesn't show up for a lot of big games that year. Stanford, Baylor, Duke, Louisville, and 3 of the 4 times they played Notre Dame that year, she pretty much sucks.
Yeah, I read that scouts were worried.
9-point games.
Yeah. Scouts are worried about the consistency. So, like, whenever I say there's a chance this doesn't work out, like, that consistency aspect with a prospect, I think, like, it got ironed out, obviously, but, like, you could see how it just, if she just, like, continued that, there's a way it could have failed.
Yeah, and you can see, and you can see how, like, if you are the kind of general manager who only starts watching prospects when it's their senior season, you would not watch Tip, like, help win titles. You would not watch Tip produce basically every game leading up to this season.
Yeah,
they were too busy watching Czech basketball.
Number one option, turning the ball over in a disgusting fashion and shooting them out of the Final Four, and just be like, well, that's not a good player, I guess. That's a gross oversimplification, but, there were places that were mocking Tip Hayes as high as 5 or 6 in the month leading up to the draft. And she ended up falling to 14, and, Atlanta got a steal out of it.
This might be the biggest gap between, other than Emma Meeseman, who we can't do because of film reasons, this is probably the biggest ordinal gap between where a player should have gone and where they did go.
Becky Hammond, obviously.
Well, that doesn't count because the ABL.
Yeah, ABL.
But yeah, fair point. But otherwise, Tip goes 14, and she should have, without a doubt, got number 2. Like, there's just not any other good players. Like, there are players who were decent role players for like a couple years, but otherwise, like, but Nigel Laney's in this draft. No, I'm thinking 2014. Ignore me. Tip Hayes is the only other like decent player in this draft, other than like you could make an argument for John Tell. No.
I mean, Demiris Dantas has played 9 years in the league.
Oh yeah, Dantas. Yeah. Dantas should go 3, and then everyone else is like, whatever. On that note, do you want to play the wins above replacement game?
Oh, I already looked. I'm sorry, but I have to mention that 2012 does feature a voided draft pick.
We're here.
Yeah.
We had to skip the Meg draft.
Yeah. Well, the Atlanta Dream, after selecting Tiffany Hayes with the 14th pick, with the 32nd pick, tried to draft a 26-year-old French international.
That was a good pick, though. Would have been a good pick.
Yeah, she's a good player, but she was 26, and you are supposed to be 20.
Wait, who is it?
Isabel Yakubu.
Oh, Yakubu.
Benin, yeah. Yeah,
she scored a bunch of points against the U.S. national team a couple times.
Yep.
This draft is just another example of teams would rather draft a bunch of 6'5" post players that can rebound. All they can do is rebound. They just want rebounders.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did scout most of them. Dev Peters, WNBA. Of course you did. That's what I do. I'm a sicko. Dev Peters, very short WNBA career, sort of, but does end up being a very solid defensive big. In college, she was fine. Didn't really do anything on offense. Kind of sucked on offense, to be quite honest. Didn't actually do much on defense, despite actually being a solid WNBA player defensively. But so why are you taking her at number 2 or number 3? I don't know. Shakina Strickland, not good. Just like not good. The jumper was decently projectable. But like she doesn't do anything you want a forward to do. She doesn't do that in WNBA either. Shanice Johnson, not good. Chloe Johnson, not good, man. Just like, what if you had like a 6'3" player who just like did a bunch of fancy stuff but did it all inefficiently? Chloe Johnson. Kelly Kane. So she redshirts her first year at Tennessee. Then she plays 3 seasons at Tennessee. Then she has recurring knee injuries that force her to basically leave during her grad year in the middle of that season for Tennessee. Go over to Turkey, start playing, and then the Liberty draft her at number 7. She has sat out 2 of the past 5 years because of recurring knee injuries. She also had to go to Turkey for, and you take her 7th in the draft. Anyway, you guys want to play the wins above replacement game?
At least they got 20 games out of her and 1.2 points per game.
Yeah, she was 0 wins above replacement. That's a little spoiler alert. So, for reference, last week, Jasmine Thomas worth 15 wins above replacement. Allie Quigley in her career, 15 wins above replacement. Sancho Little, 20 wins above replacement. For her career coming into the season, do we want to guess how many wins above replacement Tip Hayes had?
Lincoln Saw, so let me say, I'm going to say 12.
18! Tip Hayes.
Good player.
Very good player.
I didn't know about the winning.
Yeah, she's a winning player.
It's funny to sort this draft and just see how far ahead of everyone else NECA is.
It's so funny. But
remember, they should. Why they take NECA though? They should have just developed Jonto Lavender.
Speaking of which, the players who go behind Tiffany or ahead of Tiffany Hayes, and I'm just going to use them all because I'm not going to make you guess any of them. Shakina Strickland, half as many wins of replacement. That's the high water mark. Dev Peters, 4 wins above replacement. Glory Johnson, 6, mostly for terrible Tulsa teams. Shanice Johnson, 7. Sammy Prahalis, Sammy P, minus 0.3 wins above replacement. I believe there are. I did the math at one point. I think there are 6 or 7 players in league history who have had negative career wins above replacement. Sammy P is one of them.
Is there any active players?
Sammy Prahalis is one of the most important players in Mercury history.
She gets them BG.
Exactly.
She was the tank commander.
BG while Diana Taurasi hangs out on the Balkan beaches for a summer.
With her wife. Which, to be clear, I would also like to hang out on the Balkan beaches with my wife for an entire year.
Hello, if you own UMMC Ekaterinburg and you would like to pay me $1 million to hang out on some beaches in Chechnya or wherever you want, I will do that.
Just as long as it's not currently Crimea, because that's
sure.
Stay away from the war zones at the moment. Is what I would recommend. But when the war's over, no matter who wins,
for $1 million,
if you would like to pay us $1 million, I'm in.
I mean, I would take $500K.
See, you're a terrible negotiator.
Collectively, $1 million, that works too.
Hell, I do it for a tenth of that shit. Not the point though. The point is that Kelly Kane has 0 wins above replacement. Natalie Novosel, who also is just not that good at hoop, dude. She's one of those white Notre Dame players who just can hit threes and otherwise doesn't do shit. 0.1 wins above replacement. Every year they have 3 somehow.
And they're
Dabo,
probably
not related to the other Dabo. 0 wins above replacement. Yeah. Barrett, 0 wins above replacement. Sasha Goodlett, who might genuinely be the worst first-round pick I've ever scouted outside of 2021.
Didn't you mention someone else that was the worst first-rounder last episode?
Yeah, Sasha Goodlett.
There was someone else.
Damiris Dantas, also 9 wins above replacement. Abdi, the fraud from the Czech League you mentioned, 0.1 wins above replacement. Anyway, stop making terrible draft decisions to take really bad bigs over good guards. This post brought to you by Layla Lake Khan, going 9th in the draft.
That actually might be the catchphrase of the underrated series, underdrafted series.
Stop drafting terrible bigs.
Stop drafting mediocre bigs over talented guards.
It still happens.
On that note, who are we doing next week? Actually, I don't know if this counts. Is she a guard?
Why doesn't it count?
Well, is she a guard? Are we doing 2 players next week or just 1? Are we doing 2?
Yeah, the doc has 2 names.
It does. Hunter, on the fly, do you want to do both of those players next week or just one of them? So we got a lot to talk about.
I mean, the Chelsea Gray section is really easy. It's, oh no, she was hurt. She should have been.
You're giving away our scout.
Wow, dude, come on.
You just gave away.
No one knows no one would have known before us that Chelsea Gray was good at hoop.
Yeah, impossible to know.
Also talk about Alyssa Thomas.
Finally.
Didn't know she was very good either.
Maryland.
Anyways, thanks for being on Locked On Women's Basketball. Your first listen every day.
Go Terps.
Join me next week for continued coverage of the WNBA. Make your second listen Locked On Sports today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.